The big question for Southampton, will they break Derby's record?
Yeah, I'm going to go there.
They need 5 points.
Yeah, I think they will get it.
They will get 5 points.
I think so.
So they won't break Derby's record.
As in they'll beat Derby's points
They'll beat
tally
it.
is what I'm saying, yeah. Are you saying no?
I'm unconvinced. They're just losing every week.
We're going for a costume bet.
You want to do a costume bet? Sure. I'm happy to do a costume
You take
bet.
that?
5. So they need 5 points from now. No, they need 6 points from now to the end of the season.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I like costumes these days.
You've lost 2 out of 2.
I'm used to them now.
All right. Let's do it.
Me and Sim obviously got a scoring system predicting each and every Premier League game throughout the course of the season. It's 349 to Sim, 372 to me. The way the scoring works is 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for correct result. And the star man, once you pick that man, cannot pick them again for the rest of the season. After this, only 2 game weeks left to go. 5 points for a goal, 2 points for assist. Let's see how we did this week. Starting off with Southampton, Manchester City. It finished 0-0. We both went for heavy Man City victories, 5-1, 4-0. Quite unbelievable.
Lost you, Southampton.
Quite unbelievable that Southampton take a point in this game.
Did you see Diaz after the game? His interview? He was very frustrated with Southampton. He's like, they didn't even come here to play. They just came here to sit deep and not do anything. He was like basically ripping into them. But like, look, they got a job to do. That's not to be the worst team in the world. So in the Prem.
So as you can see, Sim is dressed up as a beautiful Cleopatra, Egyptian queen. And the reason was because we had a bet. Sim said Southampton will be the worst Premier League side of all time. And because of getting a point against Man City, they were not the worst Premier League team of all time. And Derby will stay as record holders for being the worst Premier League side of all time. So, I mean, look, the game went so unexpected. Southampton actually defended so well. Like, Man City could not do anything against them. I think they barely had a shot on goal.
0-0. Incredible. I mean, I wasn't actually, to be honest, the Premier League at the moment, the football is just so bad. Like, in recent weeks, I feel like everyone's just kind of given up, apart from like the Champions League teams. I haven't been watching a lot of it, but I saw some of the highlights, and it seems they really struggled City badly.
Yeah. Erling Haaland started the game, first game back.
That's why.
And he just he just didn't get a sniff.
So I have an agenda against Southampton, and you have an agenda against Moyes.
Yeah,
a lot of agendas are going around.
And talking about Moyes, he got 3 points this weekend. Everton 3, Fulham 1 at Craven Cottage. Sim went for 1-1. I went for 1-0 to Fulham. And yeah, big performance and result for Everton. They go 1-0 up. I mean, Fulham go 1-0 up with Raul Jimenez just after the 20th minute mark or something. Mikalenko gets one back on the stroke of half time. And in the last 15 minutes, Everton scored 2 and go and win the game.
Yeah, I think from Fulham perspective, you've got to be a bit gutted because I think with 8th being a fairly realistic chance of Europe, they've kind of bungled it now, 4 points behind with 2 games. So it looks like they're going to be missing out on that. But to be fair, if you offered them 11th at the beginning of the season, they might have taken it. But yeah, I think the late season form has not been great for Fulham, kind of gone against them, but fair play to Everton. Brilliant win at Craven Cottage, not easy place to go, and they haven't been winning loads of games recently, so really good for them to get off the mark and get the win, get that win away from home, and very good kind of counter-attacking win from them.
Ipswich against Brentford finished 1-0 to Brentford. We both went for Brentford to win, so we both get a point on the table. I went for 3-2, you went for 3-1. It wasn't the kind of goal crazy game that we kind of envisaged. Sade, another goal for him. What a great season he's had. Pushed them 1-0 up in the first half. And just couldn't break down Ipswich after that. And you know what? Ipswich in the last 15 minutes had a bit of a late rally. Could have potentially put one in the back of the net, but it just wasn't to be. And it finished 1-0.
What an end to the season Brentford are having, though. 4 wins in a row.
Yeah.
Unbeaten in 6. 1 lost in their last 8. And they're right now in the place potentially for Europe.
Yeah,
which is mad to think about for them, which is incredible. Their last 2 games against Fulham and against Wolves, so they've got a really realistic chance of getting that Europe spot. Imagine Frank leading Brentford to Europe.
Yeah,
what an achievement that is.
100%. And when you're looking at them compared to like a Bournemouth, you know, the narrative is like Bournemouth have had such a brilliant season. Brentford have gone a bit under the radar, and they're now above Bournemouth. And yeah, you've got to give so much credit to Thomas Frank with everything that he works with, the budget and you know the revenues that Brentford make to be where they are. is special.
It is, and you've even got players like Norgard saying Mbuemo's probably going to leave at the end of the season. You're saying Wissa might go, but they just get on with it, don't they, Frank? And the only problem is, if Frank does get another job somewhere and he does leave, what happens to them? That's going to be a big question mark. So they're probably going to fight tooth and nail to keep him. So I think a lot of it is like Charlton under Kerbishley. It was like they stayed mid-table for so long, and then as soon as he left, they just kind of just disappeared very quickly. And I feel like same might happen for Brentford if they ever lose Frank.
Potentially. I mean, if they recruit well, which they usually do, they got good recruitment. We've never seen them recruit a manager.
I guess if they follow Brighton's model, Brighton doesn't seem to hurt them.
I mean, it all goes down on the recruitment. And I think Brentford, they do recruit smartly in the player personnel. So if they can do that with the new manager, look, nothing to say Frank's not even going to be there next season. But if he was to leave and they recruit smartly, there's no reason why they can't keep doing what they're doing. Wolves against Brighton finished 2-0 to Brighton at Molineux. We both went for Wolves wins 2-1. And yeah, Wolves' form is back down again, isn't it? 2 losses on the bounce after 6 wins on the bounce. And credit to Brighton, they needed that win to keep them in the race for the European football, and they got it. Good performance.
Yeah, fair play. And it's not easy going to play Wolves and winning there because they've won 6 in a row before the last 2 losses. So fair play to Brighton, keeping themselves in the hunt. And look, a good away win. And Danny, one interesting stat came out of this. Welbeck scored. First time in his career, he's hit 10 Premier League goals.
Wow.
How mad is that? How long he's been around, played for United, played for Arsenal, played for a lot of clubs, played for England a number of times. And this is only the first time just now at 33, he's hit 10 Premier League goals.
Yeah, and he got the majority of them in the first 10 games of the season as well.
Yeah, but you would have thought at least once he hit 110. You know what I mean?
When you actually look at it, he's never been a star for Man United. He wasn't a star for Arsenal.
10 even isn't a great total. You just thought 10, surely 10 at some point. Never did.
Well,
but now he has.
Congratulations to Danny Welbeck for finally hitting 10 Premier League goals.
Crazy.
Bournemouth against Aston Villa finished 1-0 to Villa on the day. We went for draws. You went for 2-2. I went for 1-1. And I thought Villa played a really professional game here. Managed the game really well. Deserved to win as well. Disappointing from Bournemouth though.
Yeah, it wasn't a great game of football, but they got the goal and they got the job over the line, and they managed to, get all 3 points, and they just made sure they held on to what they had. I think Bournemouth, their form of late hasn't been fantastic, albeit they've drawn a lot, haven't lost too many, but they just couldn't kind of respond to what Villa were throwing. And Villa have really put themselves in a decent position for that Champions League spot now. And their next 2, they might have hit the jackpot as well in terms of who they're playing, because I think their next 2 are Tottenham and Man United.
Well, yeah.
So I don't think if they could have handpicked 2 opponents, apart from maybe the 3 bottom sides, it's those 2, isn't it? And who are playing the Europa League final. So, if they win those 2, I can't see them not making it, surely. Well, they'll have to, because unless Chelsea win both their next 2 games, they will make it.
Yeah, big credit to Aston Villa because they've suffered a bit of heartache this season. Semi-finals of the FA Cup, which was a no-show. The way they went out to PSG as well, such a spirited performance where, on another day they could have won that game with the chances that they created. So 2 heartaches in the 2 competitions. And I think their season, I think it deserves a nice little happy ending for them in Champions League football, because I think they've deserved it.
Well, they're guaranteed European football now for next season. Just where it is, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think at the moment you got to say they're favourites, because those 2 games I can't see them not winning either of them.
Did you hear? Yeah, I agree. Did you hear Unai Emery after the game? It was interesting what he was saying, and he was like, "It's just important we're in Europe next season. It doesn't matter about the Champions League. It doesn't matter about Europa League, whether it's Conference League. We just need to be in Europe."
Well, I think it does matter, because they're in big trouble financially if they don't make Champions League. I guess maybe it's relieved a bit. I guess if they're not in Europe at all, then they're in real trouble. So I guess being in Europa or Conference relieves it a bit. But considering they spend 96% of their wages of their turnover on wages, I think they had to be really in the Champions League. If they really wanted compete and progress, they need to be in that competition, I think. And even with that, apparently they have to sell someone.
Do you reckon he's just kind of saving face just in case they don't do it?
Yeah, potentially. Maybe he is. But I think they need to. I think they really need to. Not to say it'll be a massive failure if they only get Europa League, but they do really need to be in Champions League. But imagine 2 seasons in a row in Champions League with Villa. Amazing.
Brilliant. I mean, look, they deserve it in terms of the way. Look, put the money problems aside for 1 second, but just the way they've recruited and who the caliber of player that they've brought in. You know, you look at January, right? They acted like a serious club, more than anyone in the Premier League. You know, maybe Manchester City aside, but you go bring in Asensio, bring in Rashford. You know what I mean? Bring in those 2 players. These are the 2 players. Asensio came in and did the business straight away. Rashford was really important to them in their Champions League run as well. So both these players had such an impact. And Daniel Marlin, you know, no one's really talking about him, but he's had an impact as well.
And, you know, obviously Tottenham kind of got coined, you know, their position in the Big Six as it is, because I think they finished in top 6 for like 10 years in a row or something, and then they got under Poch, they got Champions League football 4 years in a row, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was 4 years out of 5.
No, I think in a row.
Was it in a row? Maybe.
I think 15, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, no, yeah, 4 years, or 5 years in a row. 19, 20 as well. 5 years in a row we got Champions League. But are Villa in their Spurs Poch era? Are you feeling?
I think Arsenal in their Spurs Poch era.
Arsenal in the Spurs Poch era.
Villa aren't there just yet because they need to have a bit of a title challenge.
But if they get Champions League this season and they get it maybe another season, all of a sudden they're well, I guess it'll be interesting if they win. They get in Champions League, but we get Europa League. Maybe we can put off that conversation for another year about kicking us out of the Big Six.
All it signifies is there's no such thing as a Big Six anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no
I think with Newcastle and Villa there now as well.
Newcastle potentially Champions League this year. Villa Champions League last year, and look how well they did against PSG, who could go on and win it. They're in the final. So
there's more of a Big 8.
There's no such thing as a top 6 anymore. And 2 of the classic top 6 are in 16th and 17th.
Yeah. But both in Europa League final.
Both in, yeah. So just is what it is. I just think the top 8, top 9 of the Premier League just all so strong. Anyone can do it on any given occasion. Next up is Forest Leicester. Very bad. Well, it feels like it would have felt like a defeat for Nottingham Forest. It finished 2-2. Sim went for 2-0, as did I. And yeah, I mean, we saw the scenes of Marinakis going onto the pitch after the game to have a go at Nuno. Look, they go 1-0 down, don't they, in the opening 15 minutes. Morgan Gibbs-White straight away, 1-1. Chris Wood at the opening, just after half-time, puts them 2-1 up, and you're like, all right, Forest are tying it around. There's no chance they're dropping this now. And they concede Buonanotte with 10 minutes to go and just couldn't find that winner.
How Forest, as good as they've been defensively, concede 2 to this Leicester team who barely score this season? It's just bottom of the mind boggles. But you know what? I'm going to say to that Forest fan, I told you there's going to be a point in the season where you go 5 games without a win and it's going to cost you, and it might just be happening now. Yeah, they've really let it slip. They've won their 1 win in 7. 1 win in 7.
And who did that win come against?
Yeah, it came against us. Of course it did. But even that game, they probably shouldn't have won, but they did, and they fair play to them. But yeah, look, their form, considering they were 7 games ago. I think if you looked at the table, they were a shoo-in. I think they'll probably think 7 or 8 points clear, and you're thinking surely they're a shoo-in now. But they've just completely dropped off a cliff.
They can still do it though.
They can. They got Chelsea on the final day, so they need to make sure.
They need to beat West Ham.
Yeah, if they beat West Ham and then take it to Chelsea,
it's like a cup final, isn't it? That last day.
And who does Chelsea have United next? They'll probably win that.
Yeah.
So they just need to make sure they take it to the last day. But look, if you're drawing at home to Leicester, there's no guarantees you beat West Ham at this point.
Of course, yeah.
So, but yeah, they can still do it. They're going to have to win their next 2, but it shouldn't have come to this really, considering the games they've dropped points in and what the position they were in. But look, I think sometimes when teams like Forest, when they get into that position and it gets to crunch time, the pressure can get to them a bit. Teams like that, you've seen it before, and they start to bottle it because they've never been in that position before. And it seems maybe that's happened to Forest. We'll have to wait and see the next 2 games. But regardless of what happens, you're right. It's a great season. But you know, when you're 8 points clear in the Champions League with 7 or with the 7 games to go, whatever it is, or 8 games to go, and you're in that position, it's obviously going to be a massive disappointment not making it.
So it usually goes one of 2 ways when a team like that, you know, are fighting for top 4 and whether they get it or not. Do they have another fist of it next season, or do they drop off completely and you know, go back to where they were?
So I don't really, it depends, I guess, how they deal with the market. I don't really see them losing anyone. Although Gibbs White's being talked about, but I think
Man City, yeah.
I think apart from him, I actually see most players staying. Maybe Murillo, but I think probably everyone's going to stay, apart from maybe Gibbs White.
Gibbs White's a massive factor.
I can't. I'll be shocked if Chris Wood has another season this season like he did next season, and they were quite reliant on him, his goals and stuff. I'd say with European football coming in, that's going to be a big factor. Unless they really sign a lot of really improve the squad significantly, they're going to be mid-table again. I'm not sure. Maybe they'll be back down to relegation, but I think they're going to. I highly doubt they'll be in the European spots again next season.
Do both Spurs and Man United finish above Forest next season?
Yeah,
both of them.
Obviously, it was so hard to know about. I think the team who wins Europa League will.
Newcastle against Chelsea, big game in the top 4 race. Newcastle win by 2-0. Tonali opening the scoring up in the first few minutes. Bruno Guimaraes sealing the victory in the last minute of the game. Nicholas Jackson seeing a straight red. Unbelievably stupid from him. And just as you think Chelsea are kind of like turning that corner, getting consistent wins, they put in a bit of a stinker at St James's Park.
Yeah, I think Jackson, that red card, man, what is he thinking? In such a big game.
So early in the game as well.
What are you doing? He literally, if you watch the replay, literally looks at Botman and just gives a big elbow. There was literally no need for it. It was so ridiculous.
It wasn't given a red on-field decision, was it? It was on VAR review.
And completely right. And now he misses the run in as well. When Jackson's actually a massive player for them, because you saw when he wasn't there, they went through a massive downturn in form, and their upturn coincided with him returning. I think that's a big part because I think he's actually a very important part to how they play, Jackson, with his kind of hold-up play and his physical. Without him, they don't really have another player like him in the front line. So. Big miss he's going to be. And look, it was a bad result, bad performance, deserved defeat. Newcastle, I don't want to tempt fate, but surely they've sealed Champions League with that. Because they're 3 points clear of Villa with 2 games to go. Although they are playing Arsenal in the next game.
That's even more reason why they've sealed it. I think they beat Arsenal.
Arsenal and Everton.
How mad is it though? Newcastle.
They could go third if they beat second. Sorry.
Second. They could realistically finish runners up this season.
Which is mental. Mental.
Mad.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Second place is going to finish on a historically low points tally this season, I think, because 70 points just scrapes you usually into top 4. Now it's going to get you second.
Yeah.
But fair play to them, good win. And for them, if they finish second it's mad to think about this. After 12 games, they're all below Tottenham. And they're going to finish second.
Yeah.
How mad is that?
It
12 games in, they were below Spurs, and we're going to finish 17th. They're going to finish second.
But what
it's
a
crazy.
season Eddie Howe has
won in the cup as well.
This season.
Yeah.
Carabao Cup win, first cup victory in a very long time, and a potential runners up as well.
But yeah, the fact they've kicked on after that Carabao Cup win and not let it distract them like a lot of teams have, is very impressive. And if they really invest smartly in this summer. They've got the makings of a series. We know they've got a brilliant team. They're not finishing second with a bad team, but if they can keep Isaac, get Gordon. But Gordon hasn't even had a good season. If they get him back to the form he was last season, if you keep that midfield three of Joe Linton, Bruno, and Tonali together, that midfield three is up there with the best. I think you get a first class right winger through the door. And all of a sudden, maybe we could really be going places.
And also, Eddie Howe did an interview a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how they've been hamstrung by PSR a lot over the past couple of years, and that's not really an issue anymore going into this summer. So if they can actually spend the money, which they have, they're actually a really frightening prospect, aren't they?
Yeah, I think
really
so.
Really frightening.
Yeah, and obviously, I think
could they have a title tilt next season if they spend the money wisely?
I think they need to reinvest in the back line as well, because I think Trippier's on his way out. We know Livramento's good, but you might need a competition for him. Probably
the other one that's been injured a lot this season. What's his name? Yeah, Lewis Hall.
Left back. Yeah, left back.
So you've got Lewis Hall and Livramento fullbacks.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Is that title challenge all good?
I think Livramento is still very young. He's improving every season.
Probably might need another centre back, I would say, because Botman's just come back. Fair enough, but Shah's getting on a bit. I think he's 33, 34 now. Burn is all right. I think he's good as a backup. And then you've got who else? Lascelles, obviously, he's going to go. So they probably need a centre back, I would say. But if they get a centre back in, maybe a full back and a right winger, their first teams, their first 11 is going to be up there with the best.
Yeah. So if they recruit smartly, I genuinely believe they can be title challengers next season. Manchester United against West Ham finished 2-0 to West Ham. You went for 0-0, I went for 1-1, and West Ham finally win a game of football. Thomas Souček and Jared Bowen getting on the score sheet, and yeah, shocking from Manchester United, to be honest, really is.
Yeah, terrible.
At home as well.
To lose to West Ham, who have, I know we drew to them, but they've just been in such bad form, playing so awfully, and they kind of found it easy. Although, I would say, watching the highlights, it seemed as though Man United had a bit of a late rally at 2-0. But the damage was done, it seems, at that point. Look, Man United did play quite a strong team as well in this game. So it wasn't like Tottenham where they rested a load of players. They played quite a strong team and ended up on the receiving end of a really bad defeat. Amorim, very interesting comments from Amorim after the game. He said, if I can't change the culture here, I might have to give space to someone else to take the job.
The thing is with Amorim, he seems to me like a very emotional guy.
Like Conte, who just says these things.
Very emotional guy where, you know, after the game, did you see he had plasters all over his fist because he was like punching something because he was getting so angry. Like this guy, he's very emotional. I think he's a very good manager. I just think like he just needs time to do work.
The problem is
he going to get it?
I think he will get the time. The problem I have for him is if they don't win Europa League. He keeps saying it doesn't matter, but if they don't win it, he ain't going to get the funds to completely change the team like he needs to.
Yeah,
and that's a massive issue because he needs funds because they need so much surgery, like ridiculous amounts, in terms of a team that can play in his way. They need probably two wing backs. They need probably a midfielder. They definitely need a striker because Højlund and Xerxes ain't going to do it. They need centre backs. They need like a whole new team.
So let's say that doesn't happen, right? Spurs win the Europa League.
He might have to go.
Amorim gets frustrated and walks or gets sacked, whatever. Ange gets sacked beginning stage of next season.
Swap managers.
Yeah, you're taking Amorim.
So if Ange goes and Amorim goes, I wouldn't mind Amorim.
I'll take Amorim.
I wouldn't mind Amorim. If that's the case, if Ange's gone. But yeah, I think he's definitely he's at the moment he's struggling at the with the job. I think out from what's called objectively, it's the way. I mean, as a fan of the club, do you like to hear your manager say things like that? Do you think?
Well,
because Ange's done the opposite. He's kind of been very kind of bullish that he's the right man, kind of thing.
I look back to Conte's comments when he did that interview after Southampton, the press conference. And I loved it when he did that because it's calling out what needs to be called out. And look, it depends if you feel like that stuff should be open in the, you know, in the public. I think more times than not, it's probably best if it's not. But, you know, sometimes it just needs to be said.
And if you're a United fan, regardless, obviously, I have my opinion of what it means for Tottenham to win Europa League. But when he says it doesn't matter if we win Europa League or don't win, the problems are much bigger than that. Is that like the messages from a United fan's point of view? I know you're not a United fan, but if you're trying to channel your inner United fan, do you think like that is kind of a message you think is a good message ahead of the final?
I wouldn't say it's a particularly good message ahead of the final, but it's true. It's completely true. Like winning the Europa League for Manchester United doesn't fix all their problems. The problems are all still going to be there for next season, and it's a similar situation for Spurs. Like as much as it's much bigger for Spurs than it is for Man United. You know, we finished 17th this year, and there's no getting away from it. They finished 16th this year. Two of the worst Tottenham and Manchester United times we've seen in history. Like, winning the Europa League, it's just papering over the cracks for both clubs.
But I guess the difference for Tottenham is a lot of fans have said the problem is that we haven't won a trophy. That is the problem. So that does kind of fix a problem.
I wouldn't say it's the problem, it's a problem.
Well, that's the one that keeps everyone's banging on about constantly.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's the only problem.
It's not the only problem, but that's the main problem, I should say. That's the one that everyone focuses on. Not to say that everything's fixed with win that, but a lot of people, as in like, that's something that a lot of people have said, like, we don't win trophies, 16 years out of trophy, massive trophy. Everyone's dying, thirsty for a trophy. So that solves a problem. But for Man United, that's not a problem they've had, either trophies. It's more about how do we get this team consistently being a title challenger again.
Yeah, and I think as much as Spurs bang on about the trophies because we haven't won one in so long, you're still looking at it and being like, how does Spurs progress? How does Spurs get back to the levels that we were under Pete Pochettino? You're right. That is also a major problem at this football club. And you would think, that if you get back to those levels that you were with Prime Poch, I know we never got over the line with Prime Poch, but usually if a team are that good, they win consistent trophies, right? So you would think like that's the main problem at this football club is getting back to those consistent levels, and then trophies should come. You know
But
what
that's
I mean?
not how this fan base has looked at it, though.
Yeah, but that's the way, that is the reality that what it should be looked at.
It should be, but it's not at this football club. Well, we'll do. I mean, yeah, we'll move on to Tottenham in a minute, but that's just the truth.
But look, it doesn't matter the way the majority of people look at it. I think it's just because we've been starved of success for so much. But when you look at it objectively, Spurs and Man United have similar problems. Similar problems in terms of we both need to get back to where we were. I mean, they've been away for so long. You know, they haven't been in. When's the last time they were in a title race?
I guess the difference between Tottenham and Man United is Tottenham were never there. We were there when, as in being a top team, challenging, but we were never where Man United have been. So it's different, I guess.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Tottenham then. 2-0 to Crystal Palace at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I went for 2-1 to Palace. You went for 1-1. So I get a point for this one. Look, it was just a shambolic performance. Much changed Spurs side against, more or less full strength Palace side. Both sides with an eye on a cup final, but you wouldn't really, I think that the way Palace played, because they absolutely destroyed us. They were really aggressive on the day as well. And
I'm surprised how strong they went. I thought they'd go weaker, but they didn't.
I was as well.
Fair play.
And look, it was probably the easiest day Palace had all season.
Yeah, record 20th defeat for Tottenham this season in Premier League, in 17th. But obviously, looking at the lineup, looking at how we selected the team, clearly our priorities are in other places. But fair play to Palace, completely destroyed Tottenham. Tottenham were dreadful on the day. Really terrible performances. Not I don't know how many I could put into words how bad it was. One of the worst of the season, if not the worst. It was just shambolic. So fair play to Palace. Great win for them and good game to get them ready for the cup final.
Yeah. And last but not least, Liverpool against Arsenal. It finished 2-2 on the day. Sim went for 1-0 to Liverpool. I went for 2-2. So the last one gives me a nice little 5-pointer, a little boost going into game week 37. Liverpool go 2-0 up in the space of 20 minutes or something. And Arsenal clawed it back in the second half. I didn't see much of this game, to be honest, but I heard Arsenal were horrific in the first half and just about got it back in the second.
They did, and fair play to them. It was a great comeback. So it looked like they were down and out, and Liverpool ripping them open. Great goals. Well, slacking, poor goals to concede from Arsenal's point of view from Gakpo and Diaz, but fair play to them. They did come back. Martinelli right beginning of the second half, and then Odegaard shot hit the post, and Moreno follows up with a rebound. But wasn't the end of the action because Moreno got sent off. With a terrible challenge 10 minutes ago, and looked like Trent comes on. We'll talk about Trent in a minute, but he comes on and he was providing lots of chances, and Liverpool really should have probably won it near the end, but they didn't. And then Arsenal nearly won it. They did have a goal ruled out fairly because Konate definitely fouled Skelly. But they had a few chances right at the end. But fair play. But Arsenal as well. Odegaard nearly wins it at the end. So Arsenal did nearly win it. But the story of the day was Trent coming off the bench and getting booed by his own fans because he's off to Madrid. Do you agree with that? Because I remember when Kane was trying to get out of Tottenham to go to City, and he came off the bench against Wolves early in the season, and he was being cheered, and everyone was, no one was booing him. And this was a guy who was trying to leave. Yeah. But I guess now Trent has left. Is it a different scenario? I guess I don't know.
Look, it's a different scenario, but the way the Liverpool fans are going about this is completely the wrong way, in my opinion. I think it's a bit of a disgrace from the Liverpool fans. Trent has won everything that there is to win at Liverpool. Unbelievable servant that this guy's been to the club. One of the best right-backs he's been in the Premier League. He's been there so long. Came through the academy. He's one of their own. And what more has he got to do for Liverpool? Like, 2 Premier League titles now, a Champions League, a Super Cup, a FIFA Club World Cup, multiple domestic titles as well, in terms of, FA Cups and Carabao. Literally, he's won it all. He's literally won it all with Liverpool and had major impacts in the majority of those trophies as well. So what? He wants to leave and he wants to go to Real Madrid. He wants to try something new. Like, I think it's an absolute disgrace the way the Liverpool fans are going about their business here.
Yeah, I understand they're upset that a Scouse lad like Trent doesn't want to finish his career at Liverpool because in the sense that because they see themselves in him, like in their minds, they wouldn't want to play anywhere else. Like this is, if I'm winning trophies and being one of the best players in the Premier League at my boyhood club, that's the ultimate dream. I would never want to go anywhere else. But for a player who's it's their career, and they only have one career, and it's a short career. And if he wants to go try playing for a team like Real Madrid and you know, being a Galactico for a time and trying something else, you know, given how many years he's given to Liverpool and how much has he won and how good he's been, I think you just got to, you know, it's got to hurt, but you just got to say good luck to him and say, you know, you've given us so much, we can't ask for any more, and fair play to you. But that's not how they're going about it. They're acting like if Trent doesn't end his career at Liverpool, he's a disgrace, essentially. Maybe it's an element of the fact they're not getting any money for him. Maybe that's upset them a bit, the fact he's leaving on a free, running down his contract. Maybe that's a bit of a frustration for the fans, which I can understand, because this is what, £100 million player, isn't he?
Yeah, but you can't let your biggest players go into, like, they should have looked to sell him before then. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's what Madrid do. They did the same with Mbappe.
Yeah,
they chat up the players, don't they?
It's just the reality of the situation. Fans can't get bogged down into how much you're getting for a player and start hating a player because you're not getting any money for him. You've got to look at what he's done for Liverpool, what he's done for the football club. And he's done a hell of a lot. And he made his debut in, the 16-17 season. We're now sitting here in, 2025. And every single season since then, he's had a major impact into their most successful period in the Premier League era. I mean, they've got to show him a bit of compassion, and they've got to show him a bit of love. And they've got to cheer him out the door instead of, like, kind of hound him out the door at this point. You know what I mean?
I think... Well, I was going to say he might. I have a theory that he could be back at Liverpool sooner rather than later. But with Alonso now being confirmed as Madrid manager, maybe not, because he's a very smart manager. He'll fit. I think if Ancelotti was still there, I don't think it would have worked. But I think with Alonso there now, if they go to like a back three, because I think the problem with having Trent at Madrid is you've already got Vinicius and Mbappe there and Bellingham, and you've basically got three players who basically need people around them to do extra running for. And then basically you got Trent there now, and so that's like another player people need to do extra running for. That's like 4 players in your team that you need extra runners for, and that's just not sustainable. But if you can kind of adjust the formation a bit, maybe you go play a back three with like get Valverde in the middle, get some really strong midfielders and centre backs who can be very good out wide. If they get like Saliba in, for example, if they can somehow get him out of Arsenal, then I think it can work.
This season.
Probably not, but I think if that kind of signing, I think it can really work.
All right, well that's that. It was nice to see Arsenal giving Liverpool the guard of honour before the game as well. They hated that, didn't they? They absolutely hated it. But it is what it is, you know. Arsenal now, no trophy since the FA Cup in Arteta's first season. There's a lot of conversation now about Arteta and is he just a nearly man? How do you feel about that? You know, is he a nearly man, or is he going to do the business eventually?
The problem, it's difficult to know, because I feel like it depends. If they really invest heavily in the summer and go big,
Already got Zubimendi in.
Zubimendi, you get a striker in Gyökeres or something, Isaac, one of those two, and a left winger, serious left winger. You know, get someone amazing, Nico Williams. Then I think they've got a good chance of actually winning more than one thing. But right now, they are the nearly men, and I think he's as I said, I think they're basically Pochettino's Tottenham. It's a very, very similar situation. They just need those few extra things to go the extra step. And Arteta says a lot about his timing. You know, last season, their points total from last season probably would have won the league this season. Their ending points total in terms of the overall. So understand that as well. But that's also timing with exactly Pochettino, same thing. We have the same conversations. The difference with them is they're probably going to back him heavily in the transfer market. We never did with Poch. So the likelihood of that sustaining and actually them going again next season is high. But what I would say is he needs to change up a lot of things. Like, he can't be so reliant on set pieces and corners and all these things like he was this season. He needs to get back to some of the football they were playing a year or two ago, because this season it's like he's tried to control every little thing. It's like we're going to defend so well, and we're just going to get people on set pieces and counterattacks and all these different things. And that only worked for a time. It was never sustainable, and it ended up falling apart. And obviously injuries as well, and they're not going to have such bad injuries probably next season they did this season. So that obviously did hamper them as well. But right now he is the nearly man. A lot of fans are saying he's got one more year.
Yeah, I've heard that.
One more year. But again, a lot of fans said that this year.
Yeah, exactly. So I do feel like...
I don't think they're going to sack him anytime soon.
Yeah, I do feel like he's got such control at that football club.
Even if they don't win anything next season, they won't sack him. If they go close.
Yeah, I feel like if they finish second again, get to another semi-final of the Champions League and, they get close but don't get the cake, I still think they'll keep him for another year.
I agree. Unless they really fall apart and they're like into a top 4 challenge and stuff like that, potentially, and nowhere in the Champions League, I don't see them sacking him.
But you know what? He says... Arteta goes on about timing, right? And about, last year, if, out of the last couple of years, we would have won the title. Well, this year, with the points tally, the last couple of years, he would have just about made top 4 or, been outside top 4.
Could have been outside, yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going to finish on a maximum of 74, and I don't even think they're going to get that. I think they lose to Newcastle this weekend. Mm-hmm. And if they do lose to Newcastle this weekend, third in a 2-horse race.
Could be 4th if City win. Could be win the next 2. 100%. I agree. And it's been a very, very disappointing season for Arsenal, 100%. I completely agree with that. And look, as much as they could definitely go again next season, with City probably going to be improving, Liverpool, if they invest correctly, there's going to be a lot of competition as well next season. Yeah. So Newcastle we're talking about as well. So
Arne Slot said there's going to be heavy investment this summer as well.
Also, you could probably going to say next season, it's not going to be as easy as this season to win the title.
No, definitely not.
So it's going to be a lot harder. So they're going to have to really up their game next season.
We say that every summer, though, don't we?
True.
It won't be as easy this year as it was next year.
Well, I think last summer we said, and we all predicted City to win it, but we probably said next season's probably the year. But
the narrative forming within the Arsenal fan base coming into this season was, this is our year. All we need is a Man City drop-off. The Man City drop-off came. And Arsenal drop-off came as well and coincided in the same year. And if Man City finish above Arsenal this season, that will just blow my mind because Man City have been so bad all season and Arsenal have been there or thereabouts all season. And what's happened is that Arsenal have been prime bottle jobs this season because every single time it looked like there was a door opening, they would just lose or draw the game. Every single time. Because doors were opening all season for them. Every time Liverpool would drop points. And it's not like Liverpool were this unbelievably unbeatable team this season. Liverpool weren't even that great this season. They just won the league because everyone else was even worse.
Exactly, 100%. They're going to finish on a very similar points total to last season.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Mm-hmm. And last season they bottled the title challenge.
Third, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to star men. Sim went for Kevin De Bruyne. I went for Omar Mamouche. Mamouche didn't even start, and I said it in the predictions. Haaland's back. I got a feeling that Mamouche won't even start the game, and he didn't. But it did finish 0-0. So every time we do this, none of the players score, and it ends up 0-0. So the curse strikes again. So going into the last 2 game weeks, it's 351 to 380.
29 points.
In 2 game weeks.
15 points a week.
You got some aces up your...
No, just you. I'm keeping my cards very close to my chest.
All right, so there you have it. That is the review of the Prem for this week. We'll be back for Predict the Prem later on in the week. But